Well, New Zealand's next Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern is now with us in the Wellington studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
Congratulations. Not even 3 months into the job of Labour leader. How did you sleep last night?
Oh, look, certainly a lot to think about, a lot of planning, a lot of work to be done. I think I'll probably take time to reflect on this moment and indeed the campaign once Christmas arrives.
Yes, indeed. You said you enjoyed the theatre of Winston Peters' decision because you found out along with the rest of New Zealand how that played out. Just take us into the room. What was it like for the Labour caucus to be watching that happening on the live stream?
Yeah, of course, we, like the rest of New Zealand, we're anticipating for a little while what time that announcement may indeed be made. By that time, a small group of both staff and colleagues and my partner Clark had gathered together while we waited. And I have to say it was during Mr Peters' opening comments and remarks that I really got a sense that really shared common ground, particularly around making sure that all New Zealanders benefited from economic prosperity. That was the moment that I thought he's going with us.
So you guessed it before he actually said New Zealand First Labour.
I did.
What would you say to the people who are characterising this government that is about to get underway as the coalition of the losers?
Oh, look, obviously I would characterise that as unfair. This is an MMP environment. We've formed a coalition government based on the majority of votes and based therefore on what the majority of New Zealanders sought in this election.
How are you going to be stamping your authority on the administration in the first 100 days?
I've done that from the very beginning. I've led our negotiations, both with New Zealand First and with the Green Party. I've been there every single step of the way. I've set out the parameters on what I believed were the priorities for us, what we would not move on, what we could seek compromise on, but ultimately holding true to what we wanted to achieve collectively as a group of parties who campaigned hard for change over the election. And we did campaign individually, I must add, but that did still speak to the common ground that we had.
So which policy changes are going to be coming in that perhaps will be your priorities?
Those that we actually stipulated as we went into the election. Our 100-day plan remains with a few minor changes, but pretty much has remained intact. I will be releasing, though, we're finalising in the next 24 hours the detail of both agreements. Essentially, the agreement with the Green Party is complete, but with New Zealand First, we've got a few more details to iron out. Those will be released early next week. But in the meantime, I can tell you that the elements of that 100-day plan, much of it remains.
Are there more taxes on the cards? For example, is there going to be a water tax?
I have said this morning when asked publicly that our focus in talking about the water royalty was delivering clean rivers. There is common ground between all parties that we need to act in that area. We remain committed to cleaning up New Zealand rivers, but I absolutely reflect now that Mr Peters did take a strong view on the mechanism that we were choosing to use. So you will see what's happened in that final agreement. I'll leave it till then, but I'm happy to share that yes, that was a firm view he took, and we have ensured though that we've balanced that with our view that we need to clean up our rivers and lakes.
Is it fair to say then that water tax you talked about, 1 or 2 cents, that is going to change?
It's fair to say Mr Peters was very strong on that issue, but we've managed to ensure that the principle of cleaning up New Zealand's rivers and lakes, that remains.
Is it going to be a situation where it is a charge on water bottling that is then going to be going overseas, or is that, for example, how this is perhaps shifted slightly?
Oh, look, it'll be obvious to members of the public who heard parties talk about this that there was common ground on the issue of the unfairness in the way that water bottlers were being treated. There is common ground there. But look, I will leave that detail to the time that we publicly release those agreements.
Okay, what about the regional fuel tax in Auckland? Is that going ahead?
Again, I want to leave the rest of those details until we release those agreements. Again, though, reflecting the fact that common ground around improving transport options, rail is a strong theme and will be a strong theme of this government.
Is it fair to say again that regional fuel tax then has changed or is off the table?
Again, we'll wait until those agreements are publicly released early next week, but I can assure you there'll be plenty of announcements in the meantime. We do need to release the ministerial portfolios that will will be held by our support partners, and then again we'll be releasing the fuller ministerial portfolios later in the week.
Your cabinet, how many slots are there going to be for Labour MPs?
In cabinet, traditionally, of course, most cabinets have numbered 20. 4 will be held by New Zealand First, the remaining 16 by Labour. So outside of cabinet, traditionally there's been 8 members. 3 will be held by the New Zealand Green Party. 5 will be held by the Labour Party.
OK. Are you hoping Winston Peters will take on that role of Deputy Prime Minister?
It's being offered to him. That is his decision.
But do you want him to actually take it up?
I wouldn't have offered it to him if I did not think that was going to be something that would provide stable, workable, solid government.
OK. Are you confident that your government is going to be able to go the distance of the full 3 years with
Absolutely.
New Zealand First?
Absolutely. And there's a couple of reasons that I can say that with confidence. The first is the nature of the agreements. The second is the relationships I've formed with the leaders of both parties. One is long-standing, and the other, I think, has a very firm foundation based on these negotiations. And the final reason, Labour has been in an agreement with New Zealand First before. As Helen Clark has often reflected, Mr Peters and New Zealand First were a party of their word. They provided stability, and we presented and delivered a stable government in 2005.
Did it go the full distance?
It went the full distance.
What about the congratulations that have been coming in? We spoke to Helen Clark a little bit earlier on this morning. She is delighted, as you would imagine. Also, Justin Trudeau, I see, has tweeted about this. Have you personally heard, or who have you personally heard from?
Yeah, so far the first I had contact with were Australian leaders, Bill Shorten and Malcolm Turnbull, which I appreciate. That is one of our most important international relationships, and that will continue under my leadership. In fact, I flagged last night, I'm very keen to make a trip to Australia as soon as I am able. I've also heard from the likes of Theresa May. It is early days, so certainly likely to have a few more conversations.
Have you heard from the United States and Donald Trump?
Not as yet.
Would you take his call?
Oh, absolutely. I am here to pursue New Zealand's interests. That is my role. Regardless of whether or not we always share the view of other political leaders, I will always pursue what's in the interest of New Zealand.
And just a final question. When you're in Wellington, Premier House, the residence?
Oh, yeah, decisions that haven't really been made, but I can tell you that last night I headed straight back to my studio apartment in Wellington and had a pot of noodles.
Congratulations on the job. Thank you very much for coming into the studio this morning. That's Jacinda Ardern, the next Prime Minister of New Zealand. It's now 24 minutes to 8.